I need to begin this episode with an apology. Patrick was generous and courageous enough to share some very personal struggles on the podcast, and I failed to provide his story with the response it deserved. Patrick has been open about his mental health journey on his YouTube channel, a choice that takes bravery and empathy. I wish more creators had the courage to do this. For those of us who are struggling, it can be incredibly encouraging to hear that we aren't alone. This discussion deserved much more space, but I got distracted and swerved away from what should have been the heart of this episode. I will strive to be better. I have failed as a podcaster and, more importantly, as a friend.
Conan, what is best in life? To crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentation of your women.
Are you ready now to witness a power not seen for thousands of years? I am the strongest! I am the Viking!
Please, we can kill it.
You may have invaded my mind and my body, but there's one thing a Saiyan always keeps. His
Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So just for the listeners, this is Patrick Maguire. You can find him on YouTube and Instagram at Full Primal Power. He competes raw with wraps. He's a pro powerlifter. And you just did a meet with sleeves, which I've heard of some about your reasoning and your coach's reasoning for switching to sleeves for that meet, but we can dive into that later. Would you like to start off with any announcements for our loving listeners?
By the end of the week, I'll have a powerlifting ebook going on to the Amazon stratosphere of I think Kindle. I think it's through Kindle. I'll be posting the powerlifting ebook that I've been teasing for almost half a year at this point. So that should be going live by the end of the week, hopefully tomorrow, but we'll see how much of a pain in the tuchus it is to actually post it.
Oh, sure. Is this your first time using Kindle for publishing?
Yeah.
So I've been thinking about it. I have some stuff I've been making the rounds with literary agents, but I'm a little exasperated at this point, and I'm just thinking of going straight to market. So how have you found the whole Kindle? How has that worked out for you so far?
I've done a little bit of research with the YouTube to see how to actually do it, and it seems pretty straightforward. The only thing that I've done through Amazon right now is the voice acting stuff, and that's pretty straightforward as a narrator part. But we'll see how actual author side is going for that, and eventually I'll do an ebook or an audio recording of that ebook once I'm done with my current project and when I'm in between projects, and hopefully people can ride their way to work while listening to my sweet voice tell them that sumo's stupid. Stuff like
and
that.
A sweet voice it is, and a wholesome message, about the sumo. So, I really would like to dive into how you pivoted into voice acting and your own kind of writing and reading, because that's a whole aspect of your life, I guess, that's fascinating to me. And so I was hoping to devote some time maybe in the back half of this to delve into that. But maybe a good place to start would be your athletic background and your entry into the weight room. I think you grew up in New Hampshire, and maybe you had an older brother who you were tagging along with.
Yeah. When I moved to New Hampshire when I was 10, and I've pretty much stayed in New Hampshire ever since. I'm the youngest of three, and my oldest brother, who's 6 years older than me, has always been the athletic brother. When he graduated college, he joined the Army, and he was a lieutenant in the Army, and was very healthy in that kind of realm, and all leading up to going to the Citadel as a military academy. He was all in the weight room and stuff like that, following Cali Muscle, introduced me to Ronnie Coleman, Kai Green, that kind of realm of things. And I was like, when I turned 16, I was like, I now have access to my car and I can go to the gym whenever. And I was doing a project for school on polyphasic sleep. And I was figuring if I can sleep 6 hours a night or 4 hours a night with 2 naps throughout the day, and go to the gym in the morning and at night, I'm hitting 2-a-day splits. I'm trying to do this like bodybuilding thing, because I was always the fat kid in school. and I was the starting center and starting nose guard on the high school football team, as well as the kind of bruiser for the hockey team somehow. Uh, I started playing hockey in first grade and went all the way until my junior year of high school. And they kind of would just point at people and be like, him. And I'd be like, okay, gotcha. And I was a left wing in hockey. And the center and right wing were first team all state. And then I just wasn't even mentioned. I was like, okay, the bodyguard gets no props, but I'm fine with
Yeah,
that.
but you laid the groundwork and you know
Yeah,
that in your heart, you
yeah.
know.
It's like the movie The Goon with was it Sean William Scott? Have you seen that movie?
Okay.
Pretty
I
good
mean, I've
movie.
seen Goonies, you know, and you do
Ah,
bear a passing resemblance to the guy who oh no, his name escapes me. Never mind.
yeah.
Forget the joke. Okay.
But
But the goon.
yeah, really good movie. It's about
Yeah.
a guy who his friend is really into hockey. They go to a hockey game and he just starts beating on the hockey players after his friend is talking shit to them um from the stands. Pretty good movie. But yeah, that was my background. I was also my senior year of high school instead of doing hockey because ice hockey is very egocentric and ego driven. I was just done with that, so I joined the bowling team and I ended up being on the top. I think it was like top 50 in the state for high school bowlers. So I did that my senior year of high school, and then after that, I was like, I don't know what to do, so I'm just gonna try and get healthy, do bodybuilding kind of things. I was doing the 2-a-day splits, and in the morning I would do an Arnold Schwarzenegger from bodybuilding.com era
Yep.
where you just Google Arnold Schwarzenegger program and do that in the morning, and at night it was a Ronnie Coleman split. So
Okay.
I was basically trying to be a bodybuilder, and I developed tendonitis in my wrists. And I asked the lead athletic trainer at the health uh it wasn't a gym, it was like it was they've got like tennis courts, they had a gym and like pools and like uh spinning classes.
Was it
Health
some kind
club.
of racket club? Oh, health. Okay.
Health club. Yeah, health
Yeah.
club. And I asked the lead athletic trainer there. I was like, "Is there anything I can do for my tendonitis in my wrists?" And he was like, "Oh, talk to this guy." So he pointed him out to me, and I followed him into the locker room, and the lead athletic trainer was talking to him. He was like, "There's this young kid. He's 18, and he's asking about something for wrists and talking about wrist wraps and getting that." And the guy was like, "Well, is he a pussy?" And I walked in at that point. I'm like, "I don't think I am." He was like, "Then come bench with us next week." And that was the first time I ever benched over 300. And ever since, I've been competing. I think at least twice a year from 18. Now I'm 27. So it's been a long time, but it's been like that spinning top from Inception. As long as I can get in training, get in the gym, and see progress going, I know that things are going all right.
You think it's a centering force in your life?
Oh, for sure. It's like a lot of the things that you learn from lifting, like um, your work habits, your discipline, the way that you solve problems, all of it roots back to how you go into the gym. Like if you expect fast results, you're looking for quick ways out, generally you're going to be looking for that in your everyday life. But if you're willing to put your nose to the grindstone and you're willing to put in the work, willing to accept failure in the to progress forwards like you do in the gym, like you know where your maxes are because you've failed beyond that, but you put in the work and then you end up hitting those numbers that you've always wanted to hit. That kind of bleeds into the rest of your life and it changes the way that you approach things. Like what's it's almost like when you approach a hard task, you're like, well, is this more intimidating? Is this more scary than walking up to an 800-pound squat? Like things get kind of real really fast and you're like, oh, I can take on pretty much anything. If I fail this, I'm not going to die. If I fail a 10-25 squat, we're going to have a bad time. So it kind of zones things into a little more realistic and capable kind of reality.
Yeah, and I think, and this maybe speaks to something that I've observed kind of in your more recent transition to working with Brianny and Joe, but there's something about I think we get attached to methods of progression that we've seen results with, but
Yeah.
obviously there's a sort of timeline on that, but it takes a lot of courage to be willing to pivot into a system that maybe you're unfamiliar with. And,
Yeah.
that definitely is applicable outside of the weight room as well.
Yeah, like I was with Greg Panora for 7 years doing the whole old school powerlifting, doing fifth set method. So I'm pretty acclimated with that. And then I went to the first American Pro and I missed my first squat due to depth, my second squat due to depth, and I hit my opener on my third. And I was like, I was looking at a 1050 squat and I only get 970. I only get my opener. And I had like pretty much the rest of that meet. I was like, I don't want to even be here. I went 2 for 3 on bench. And somehow for the first time, I hit a deadlift PR for the first time in 5 years. And I was like, there's something, these little guys, they're coming up on these 2,300 totals. Like John Haack just hit 2,300 and he
Such
was
a little guy, such a tiny, puny human.
he's, he's barely 200 pounds.
That's
He
crazy.
competes in the victim weight classes under 200.
And
Um,
it's all in his arms. He has the arms of a 242. He's got like Dan Green arms.
yeah, but he squats 800, deadlifts mid nines, and then benches close to six. Like there's something these little guys are doing that I'm not doing. Because like you look, there's John Hack, there's Dawson Wyndham, there's Shane Hunt, Joe Sullivan, Chad Penson, like all these like I call them little guys, but they're a lot bigger than a lot of everyone else. I just happen to
Hey,
be
I was standing next to Shane the other day, and he doesn't seem little to me, but I
yeah,
understand what you mean. Yeah.
yeah. People who don't breathe heavy 24/7, little guys.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
they're doing something that I'm not doing. So I was like, what if I go about it and I try to be a big guy doing what the little guys are doing? And like there should be no reason that someone who's 200 pounds should be competing total wise with someone who's 370. So I was like, all right, let's hire one of these little guys to teach me what they're doing and everything. So I hopped on with Joe, which was kind of easy to kind of transition into because at that point I was already with Brianny for I think a
Okay.
year and a half, maybe 2 years. And the approach is way different. It's like a lot of it's like um it's just trying to get a stimulus rather than trying to blow the CNS off. And like I don't take deloads, which is mind-boggling because when I was with Greg, I was training every third day and every third like cycle of a week because my weeks would end up being 9 days long. I would take a deload, which would be a week of like 3x1 at 50%. But like it's almost like a cube method, like a synthesis of the cube method along with some like modernized programming where it's like something might be deloading at one point, like my squat might deload, but my bench and deadlift are still going, or because
Mhm.
like you need to deload your best lift more often because it's more taxing on your CNS and you're going to accumulate more fatigue, but you don't need to deload your bench as often you need to deload your squat or deadlift. So
Sure.
it's
Yeah.
like you can go 10, 12 weeks without deloading your bench and nothing bad's going to happen. But if you go 10, 12 weeks without deloading your deadlift, you're going to be pissing blood. Like it's not going to be a good time. But um there's been growing pains, definitely
Yeah.
for sure, because they're like, all right, so first of all, you're fat. And I'm like, yeah, but like takes mass to move mass. And they're like, shut the fuck up and actually like let's take about this a little more methodical. It's not it takes mass to move mass because some mass serves no purpose. And I was like, but scientifically, the normal force of bar whip, you have to be bigger mass. Every single natty who's ever squatted over 1,000 has weighed 400 pounds. They're like, shut up. We're gonna fix your deadlift. And the way we do that is we make you less fat, and then we build you back up so that you're big but not fat. And I was like, okay. And a little bit of struggles because being like I started off at 387 with Brianny, and this past meet I was 328. So we've done a
Yeah.
lot of cutting, and my total's only gone up. And it's like you look at open powerlifting, like I remember when Skylar Brandt broke the all-time teen world record. Everyone sent me the video because um like I was the most prolific or like everyone knew that I was young as well, and they were like, "Oh, look at this guy; he's gonna pass you soon." And Jackson Powell too is in that kind of because he was looking at like a mid 900 squat I don't remember if it was in wraps or sleeves, but they were like, man, it sucks being fat. Let's lose weight. And then their squat fell off, their bench fell off, and they lose like 500 pounds off their total. And I, I talked to Brianny and Joe, and I was like, I don't want to lose my total. I want to gain my total. And they were like,
Yeah.
okay, we're gonna make sure that we do this right. We're not gonna dive bomb you. We're going to do this right. We're going to do it methodically. And I was like, but if we get to 400 pounds and I'm like 10% body fat, I won't be mad. And they're like, we'll talk about that later. So it's like the method that we're going is we're going to do 2 meets every 6 to 8 months. And we're basically taking a bodybuilding approach where they've got cycles of bulking and cutting, kind of meshing the two worlds together. Because Brianni's got that IFBB Pro card and she understands nutrition, and they've got that I think he's Dr. Jake Benson. I think he's a doctor, not quite sure, but he's got that doctory background, so they know
Sure.
what's gonna work biologically, and they're like melding the worlds of meathead and biology. So like I'm gonna have a light meat in sleeves because sleeves are gay. I can say that now because I've competed in sleeves. You
Oh,
can't.
I thought you were gonna say because you've done gay for pay.
No, no, no,
Not yet. Okay.
no, no, no. You
You
got
can
to
still
start
say it though.
a foot finder first. I don't look
Right.
like Bear Wheels. Gay for pay is not my route yet. I'm not that desperate. I just downloaded Uber Eats driver app. I'm a little
Okay.
desperate, but I'm. If you do know a Splenda mommy, sugar mommies are hard to find, but Splenda mommies, we're
Splenda.
more
Yeah.
we're
Maybe a
more
monk
out.
fruit mommy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
stevia in the raw.
Oh man, definitely raw. It's interesting to see kind of what you're talking about, the meshing of methods, because I know that Brianni and Joe are involved with RP, and I think Joe's training with Jared right now, and it seems like he
Yeah.
might be thinking about eyeing like a bodybuilding show. I don't
Yeah,
know if I'm wrong
he's
in
been
that.
talking about doing a bodybuilding show. He was going to do his last powerlifting meet at the American Pro 2, but he got
Mhm.
injured right before it, and he was like, I was going to go and transition into a bodybuilding prep and do a bodybuilding show. Um but he got injured. He was like, I guess I just start that early, and he's been doing pretty good. I think he's bulking right now. But yeah, he's been training with Jared Feather. Brianni did a whole prep with Jared Feather. I think it was her first bodybuilding show. Was with the RP Renaissance periodization guys.
Mhm.
I thought there was a different. I'm thinking RPE, which is gay.
Oh, okay. Also, okay, important to know. We'll have to circle back to that. But wouldn't you say that for most fellas or most folks, 90% of getting stronger and improving your total comes down to accruing more muscle mass?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, it's so weird to me, the divide of like these people who are doing singles year round and no hypertrophy work. They leave the gym after their SBD day. Like it just there's this huge disconnect.
yeah. Well, you've got four different types of muscle fibers. There's the cardiac muscle fibers, which
Nobody cares
self-explanatory.
about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's seeming more and more important as we kind of progress through the powerlifting sphere and trying to optimize
Yeah.
things to
Okay.
oblivion. But you've got like the white muscle fibers, you've got red muscle fibers, and I forget which one has the 2A and 2B, but there's the it's like the more you put all your eggs in one basket, the hyperplasia looking for power, you can only express your power so often, but you need some sort of endurance and hypertrophy in order to recover faster so that you can express your power more often. And it's almost like you're you've got a linear slope if you're just putting all your eggs in one basket, but it's a little bit steeper. Like the starting point's lower, but you're gonna surpass the all in one basket at some point if you do both. And that's why a lot of these new top level lifters are looking like Greek gods because they've got a pretty hypertrophy heavy off season, but they're able to express their 1 rep max more and more frequently. So we're kind of transitioning from seeing like the Milanichevs where they compete once every 6 months, maybe once a year, to like Brianni's competing 4 weeks after doing the Ghost Clash. So it's like she's recovered enough
Wow.
because she's got that cardiac endurance and she's got that hypertrophy background where she's able to do that. And I'm so proud of her because she took the super heavyweight approach to weighing in and just weighed in whatever she was. So I'm glad I've at least
Nice.
rubbed off on her.
Respect.
Yeah.
Yeah. No gut cut.
Oh,
No water cut. I've
yeah.
been thinking about for this meetup in Iron in July. I don't know if I care enough. I'm not going to be competitive anyway, so I think I just don't want to go through the suffering.
Yeah, just have fun. If the rule of thumb is if there's no all-time world record on the line or there's no money on the line, don't do a cut. Just go in there, have fun, hit some PRs, and get closer and closer to the point where it will end up eventually being necessary. Because it's probably the most dangerous part of powerlifting is people trying to be
Yeah.
a little too aggressive with water cuts.
The renal stress.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cardiac stress, renal stress, and the lack of ability to be able to recover in time for competing, and they put their
Sure.
ligaments and muscles in a compromising position. Even if we have the million IVs available to
Yeah.
us at those pro meets, it's still not enough.
Yeah. So you were down to I think 328 at Ghost Clash. Am I remembering right?
Yep,
Wow.
328.
Okay. Are
Small.
you gaining into the American Pro?
Yep. So we're looking at being somewhere in the 350s. The last American Pro is 352, and we're looking at somewhere at between 355 and 357 for the body weight. And after the Ghost Clash, they were approaching my nutrition the same way that they were approaching it before, but the we've gotten low enough to the point where the ratio of my lean muscle tissue and my adipose fat tissue is to the point where my muscle tissue is outpacing the my metabolism. So I'm
Mm,
if I don't eat enough in the morning, I go a little bit of hypoglycemic because my insulin sensitivity is actually back to where it should be. So
yeah.
it's like I get if I don't have a bagel with like 40 grams of honey on it, I get dizzy when I take my dog for a walk. And I'm like, I messed up. But
But it's a good thing to be messing up because it's a
yeah,
marker that indicates, yeah, you're primed to kind of grow,
yeah, it's
right?
like fat people can go days without eating, and maybe on the third or fourth day they'll be like, "Oh, I haven't eaten today. I'm a little dizzy." But like the Greek god people, they go like half a day and they're like, "Shit, I'm dying." So it's a good indicator that we're following the plan close enough and we're doing everything right that we're actually back to like normal and not fat people metabolism.
I will say, I know that you're losing some honey on those bagels because it's always running off the sides. I see
Yep.
what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's programmed for 40 grams, but I put 50 grams because I know that my beard is going to take at least 10 of it.
Compensate. Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. That's smart. That's wise. So Ghost Clash, was that a PR deadlift for you at that lower body weight?
Um, it was a meat PR for sure. I
Okay.
pulled 777 at the American Pro twice, but it got red lit twice.
Oh, okay.
And the first one it was falling out of my hand, and the second one, I don't know. A lot of people were like, that should have passed, but
Yeah.
it didn't. So I'm glad I was able to pull a 771 PR deadlift at
Yeah.
the Ghost Clash and take a swing at 800. I was just switching hands every once in a while away from getting that.
Yeah. Are
Yeah.
you, it seems like you're taking a lot of care to kind of do grip work,
Yeah.
following up on that.
Yeah. Grip's always been my issue. It was like a 5 to 7 year time that I was stuck at a 700-pound deadlift. I pulled it in a push pull, and I could not for the life of me get it in a full power meet. Even my first 2300, I still only had a 675 deadlift because I dropped 700 twice out of my underhand in my left hand. It's my weaker hand, non-dominant hand, non-cardio hand. But doing a little more grip work is good for both deadlifts and bench because the stabilizers are in the forearms that stabilize the bar. And if you kind of trash your grip right before you do a bench, you're going to notice it real fast. Everything's going to get tired more quickly. So it's almost like feeding two birds with one scone to train grip for both bench and deadlift. So we're doing a little bit more grip work to try and make our way to 900.
But why didn't you eat the scone?
I was full. I had the rest of the
That's
pack.
fair. Yeah. And are these
Not cold.
crows?
No, they're little pigeons. They're like blueberry scone.
Disgusting. Disgusting. The rats of the sky.
Yep.
But
The
that's okay.
CIA.
And the CIA, absolutely. Yeah, of course, they're
Birds aren't
robotics
real.
programmed. Yes, 1000%. I'm glad we're on the same page with this. Would you say that your bench or your squat in your own mind is your dominant lift?
That is a hard question because it's like if we did a fuck Mary kill with squat and bench, I'd try to get a threesome going with those two. And
Fair
like
enough.
deadlift is just a little cuck in the corner. But like recently, my squat and my bench haven't been moving at all, and my deadlift's been popping up, and I've gained
Yeah.
almost 100 pounds on my deadlift over the past 2 years. So it's like the I did lose a bit on my squat and bench going down so low with the body weight, um, just by missing 633 at the Ghost Clash. We could see that, but coming back up, we're going to have a little bit more mass in order to kind of mitigate the whippiness and all the physics going on there. So we're looking possibly at a 650 potentially for a bench. We were joking around about a 650 bench for the
Yeah.
Ghost Clash, but didn't happen, obviously. But it, it's hard to choose between those two because I have fun doing both of them. Squatting in sleeves is absolutely atrocious. It's the worst thing on the earth. It's awful. But in wraps, you can't feel anything, and it's just like you kind of just eat everything, and it feels good. And I haven't bled out of my nose yet, but it feels like all the pressure goes to your face and prostate, and like
Mm,
I'm like, am I gonna cry tears of blood this time?
yeah.
But
Or have
bench
an
is all,
incredible orgasm. Have you ever come yourself on the platform
that's
from
how
the
I know I hit depth.
prostate pressure?
That's
Oh,
how I know.
okay, good. Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes
All,
sense.
all the
Yeah.
pressure goes to the face and the prostate. No one talks about it. When you squat a grand, you're also hitting some vinegar strokes at the bottom there.
That explains the facial expressions.
Yep. That's why your face goes
It's
purple. It's
also,
not the
yeah.
pressure, it's the cum.
Yeah, my blood pressure, my fiance is commenting. She's like very distressed at how red my face gets now. And I'm like,
Ah,
that's a good sign. My hematocrit's going up or something.
yeah. It'll always be red. It'll always go
Yeah.
red, purple. If it goes blue, that's when it's concerning. But unless you go multiply bench, that's not gonna happen.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my hair's gradually creeping back. So I'm just aspiring to be the red-faced, bald, short guy at the gym.
Join
I know
us.
that's my destiny to inherit. Yeah,
The dwarves.
that's right. Yeah, I do feel very dwarven. So Ghost Clash 3, you're coming off of that. American Pro 3, how many weeks out are you?
That's in
Okay.
November.
So you have
Yeah.
quite a bit of time. Yeah.
Yeah. We're only like 4 weeks out of the Ghost Clash 3. So it's like I'm just finishing up the first 4 week like block or cycle, whatever, of training from that. And I hate it. It's
Yeah. Are you
hard.
doing this hypoxic stuff? I've been hearing about assault bike sprints and like air squats.
I'm surprised that I haven't had any assault bike sprints or air squats. Well, actually, my gym doesn't have an assault bike anymore. I accidentally tore the handles off going a little too hard doing the assault bike sprints. So now it's elliptical machine sprints for me. But yeah, pretty much the past two training preps, I had assault bike sprints or elliptical sprints after I tore that in half, along with it'd be like a minute of air squat or a minute of assault bike sprint as fast as possible, nasal breathing only, feeling like you're drowning, right into 25 air squats with a PVC pipe. And then you've got like 45 seconds of recovery time and then go back into it. And it's like 8 sets of that. And that's like 75% of like the day five when I do 5 days worth of training. And I don't know why Joe transitioned me to 4 days of training this training cycle. Maybe because we're trying to bulk me up a little bit. He's taken
Mm.
the cardio out of it. But it's kind of funny doing that. My resting heart rate dropped to 57 just walking around and below the average that doctors look for. And
Yeah.
yeah. above 300 pounds, whenever I go to the doctor or the hospital, they're like, we need to do an EKG. Our machines aren't working. Your pulse is too low. Your blood pressure, there's no way it's this low. I'm like, do you just expect every 300-pound person to be just not healthy? It's
Yeah, and I think people under don't necessarily. I'm not talking about medical professionals, but just the general population doesn't recognize that like the more muscle mass you carry, the more strain that is on your cardiovascular system,
yeah,
because it's distributing blood over a wider area, right?
yeah,
Um, and it's incredible how quickly it seems that people can make cardiovascular adaptations. That
yeah,
system is like the most rapidly trainable system in the body. I've come from like an ultra running Ironman background, and like the proportion of your year where you're doing base work, just kind of zone two aerobic heart rate in relationship to the proportion of the year where you're doing some kind of anaerobic work, like a VO2 max kind of work,
yeah,
is just hugely biased to the aerobic stuff because you can max out your VO2 adaptations with like 4 weeks of training. And then
yeah.
you kind of just stagnate. And so, I mean, that couldn't be said. I guess the comparison would be the amount of time you should spend in a hypertrophy block versus like a peaking block, maybe for powerlifting.
Yeah, we spend way more time in a hypertrophy block than peaking. Like right now, I'm in a hypertrophy block, and there were a couple days where like the warm up for squats was 3 by 10, 525, and that was when we're just figuring out that I'm going a little hypoglycemic during training because I was like, the world is spinning for 40 minutes. My heart rate is at 65. I don't know what's going on. My coach was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, well, luckily you have 55 grams of carbs with you. Skip the main work, do the accessories, but like half-heartedly go home and just have some Earl Grey tea with a bunch of sugar in it, or like have a bagel, or just get some carbs in you because we're gonna have to readjust the program that we just wrote for you because the adaptations are over what we thought were gonna happen." So,
Yeah, I mean, it seems like Joe is incredibly responsive in
oh
that
yeah.
way and very adaptable. Yeah. And I would suspect that you don't know what your training looks like 4 weeks from now because of that.
Yeah, it's very adaptive to the client. And I talk to Joe almost every day. I know that he gets busy a lot of times, so I try to mitigate how much time that I'm talking to him. But it's almost like when you have a coach, whether it's Joe or anyone, the amount of individual work that they give you, the individualization is going to be based off of how much you communicate with them. So when I'm training, after I've done the main set work, I trim it and I send it to him right away. Or if I'm having a struggle with something, I send him a video right away. And I stayed with him for a couple days. I was in Vegas for a job interview that I didn't get, but it's funny. He wakes up at like 6 a.m. and he works. He's on his phone constantly. He'll go to the gym and turn his phone to like silent, and he'll only check things when he just feels like it. And then when he's back, he's just on his phone, on video calls constantly until like 8 p.m. And Brianny's like, you can institute working hours. He's like,
Yeah.
the clients they need the responsiveness, they need the individualization, they need the attention because their goals are my goals too. So it was kind of cool to see that, and I lost my train of thought there.
Well, I wouldn't want to live that way, but it's reassuring to have a coach that lives that way.
Yeah, yeah. So we talk, and it's not even always about lifting, because like one of the things that he's taught me is that your body can't tell the difference between physical, emotional, and mental stress. So a lot of the top lifters that he has, like Justin Zottel and I, were his most stressful clients because we're at the point where everything outside of the gym is the thing that's bringing our gym work down because we're so optimized and we're so on point with everything when it comes to the gym. We're pretty on point when it comes to things in nutrition, and it's just the things that he doesn't have control over, that he and Brianny don't have influence over, like stressful situations, how to communicate with other people at home. Like a lot of the lessons that he's taught me to deal with stress is the heartbeat manipulation stuff, like the meditative breathing stuff like that. and emotional and mental maturity, how to properly communicate wants, needs, and set up boundaries with other people so that we don't get stressed out, so that we can actually have adequate amount of sleep and adequate amount of adaptation to the stimuli that he provides us in the gym, and our body isn't adapting to stressors outside of the gym, so that we can kind of put all our eggs in the gym basket so that we can get as strong as possible.
Yeah, I mean, leave the dualism to the rationalists. Like, it's 1000% an integrated system, and to
Yeah,
neglect that is just oversimplifying things to your own detriment.
yeah,
Um, and I have to say, I think that a lot of elite athletes, such as yourself, uh, put so many of their eggs into their performance basket that they stay very dialed in on those markers that are more closely and observably related to their success in their sport. And that can often lead to someone who doesn't have the capacity, but hasn't put their attention towards addressing other aspects of kind of maturing, right, as a
yeah,
person. And I mean, I I'm not trying to bring this back to myself, but I relate to this because I was very single-minded in my pursuit of endurance sports. And I was just, when I quit, I was like a man child, and
yeah,
I had neglected so much, and it all caught up with me very quickly. But it was because I was a master of compartmentalization,
yeah,
and that led to my success as a runner. And then kind of to getting through grad school academically, I just could kind of like shut off what was happening to me emotionally to get work done.
yeah,
And now I am not as good at that. And I have to say I'm a much happier person
yeah,
to just have to deal with something that's going on, emotionally before I can sit down and work.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
Like if you know that you have a fight with a significant other coming up and you're like, man, I don't have time to deal with this. It's just like your stress level is at a certain point constantly, and you know it's going to peak when you eventually have that like discussion or fight that's coming. But like once you have that fight, it just dips right down, and everything kind of like goes into, and everything's coming up Millhouse and everything feels good. But like if you just keep avoiding it, that stress is just always up, and you just get used to being so stressed out, and you're like, I guess heartburn is just natural and everything.
Yeah.
And it's like
Um,
and it's like the quicker, it's almost like the Band-Aid method. The quicker and the faster that you deal with that stuff, the better your stress is going to be lower, or it's going to get lowered faster, and you'll feel better, and things are going to just go better in general.
Absolutely. And I've learned that lesson the hard way. And kind of, if something happens to me, I I set aside time, I make time to go experience those feelings,
Yeah.
and I think that so many of us chase so many ways to avoid those feelings, and that's why we keep feeling shitty. You
Yeah.
have to you almost have to schedule a time to feel shitty and process something,
Yeah.
before you can move on. And it's very cathartic.
Yeah.
Tears release enough serotonin that it's essentially equivalent to taking Molly, or so
Yeah.
I've heard. So yeah,
Allegedly.
good cathartic tears. So you have 4 days of training and 1 day of scheduled crying. That's your emotional workout, right?
I guess so.
Yeah. There may be
Sometimes
a
it's just my,
market if you record the audio too
if
of the
I just
crying.
start an
Man
OnlyFans of
cries,
just me crying.
but just the sound.
Yeah, just the sound.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was talking about starting a foot finder with Hunter Henderson. She was like, "Why don't you just start an OnlyFans?" I was like, "You're like a top performer." She's like, "What world did you ever think I was going to be successful at OnlyFans?" I'm like, You literally have a cult following." She's like, "You never know if you're going to be successful. Just do it." And I'm like, "I just want to post pictures of my feet so I can afford more pizza."
Yeah. And platonic pictures of your feet. And the
Yeah,
pizza are necessary it's platonic on your end. And once you
yeah,
release it, it's out of your control. So
yeah.
yeah.
And then every pedicure I get's a tax write-off because it's a small business.
Oh man, that's amazing. Hopefully soon a big business. I think you're underselling yourself. There's definitely a market. You know,
Oh.
the
Yeah,
super heavyweight power lifters are popular in many communities.
yeah, in my DM requests, very, very specific.
I'm sure. Yeah.
I've It was like after the sixth dick pic, I'm like, I'm not looking at these anymore.
Oh man,
We're just
that's
ignoring
hard.
them.
That's
Yeah,
hard.
they were pretty hard. It
Yeah.
was
Okay, took me a second. Maybe this is a good time to apologize for my incredibly embarrassing autocorrect before we recorded.
Nah,
It's,
nah.
you have talked a lot about mental health on your channel.
Mhm.
And is that something you'd be comfortable getting into, maybe your journey over the past couple years?
Yeah, sure. I don't know where you would want me to start, but
I know that you have had some mental health struggles outside of the gym, and you've had a lot of change in your life personally over the past couple of years. And
yeah,
it certainly takes courage to share that, even if you think nobody watches to the end of those videos, somebody's hearing it. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, so the first day that I trained for powerlifting, that after that guy asked if I was a pussy, and I hit, I think it was a 315 bench for the first time. Um, I was doing bodybuilding splits at that time, and I would usually go home and take a nap, but that day was different. I trained powerlifting. I went home and I was like, I'm not sleepy. I'm not deprived of all the energy and everything. So I stayed awake and I went out with my family to get sandwiches. And we get a call from a paint estimate that our house is burning down. And so like we go back and it was a 5 alarm, just total, the house is total, just burnt all the way up. And so we got an apartment in a different town over, actually the city we're living in now. And it was like it never felt like home. So like that Maslow's hierarchy of needs has never had like a home base. Like I currently have a bed in my car because I'm not ever sure that I'm gonna have somewhere to go home to. But after it's almost like that house fire. I hate using it as an excuse for anything because it's like I overcame that. I'm resilient, and I don't want to be able to like point at us. I don't want to victimize myself with things, but like a lot of the mental health issues that I've had have kind of like popped up ever since after that. And like my first year of college, I would the first semester I was at Drexel University, in Philadelphia, and I was like, there's no windows here. I am just depressed all the time. So I transferred to the University of New Hampshire, and like I was like, I don't have any friends here. I don't belong anywhere. I don't have anywhere to be. And I started having suicidal thoughts and
Ideation,
yeah,
ideation. Yeah.
ideations, yeah. And at that time I went to my doctor and they diagnosed me with major depression and they prescribed me I think it was Prozac, and I was like, why doesn't my dick work anymore? But shuffle that around, and I was pretty good with the medication for a while, and then I think it was 2019. So that was 2015. 2019, I just snapped because I had been bottling everything up, and I ended up having to go into an intake hospital right after my doctor changed my prescription to Abilify because I couldn't even go outside. I was just so afraid of sounds and everything, and the anxiety was just over the top, and I couldn't do anything. And I actually hallucinated a whole cat, an orange tabby cat named George. He had a whole spot in my heart. And when I came off of the Abilify, I was like, so where's George? And my wife was like, what? I was like, this whole cat, where's
Yeah.
George? So like I had to overcome that. And so I was in inpatient, like basically you think padded walls and everything. It's not like that. It's basically they stick you in rooms. You're not allowed to have any sort of shoelaces because like I was having the suicidal ideations again, except with a different plan. Um, and that was probably one of the most terrifying experiences I had ever seen because I was like, if I don't take care of myself, I'm gonna look at, I'm gonna basically fit more in here with every, like there was a um schizophrenic person who had been there for months, and it was like one of those, you should only be here for a week. There were people there. They were like, yeah, I've been here since January, and I'm like, it's June, it's July, like what? So it's like things are just get like I was like, I need to do something to make sure that I'm doing better. And then 2020 hit and all of that went out the
Oh
door.
my gosh.
And uh I went back to I'd stepped out of school for a bit because I was like spinning my wheels. I wasn't sure where I was going. And I was like, I'm going, if I don't go back to school, the um that January, then I was basically done as a human. But I got back at UNH, and I only had 2 semesters left before I got my math degree. And 2020 happened, and right before the end of the first semester, and we all went locked in. And I had just been evicted from my apartment in Mass, and I was living in my brother's basement. And so I had locked myself in a room, and I was doing 26-hour days, making sure I at least had food. And that put me back in the hospital again. And I remember seeing the Boston riots going on the TVs, and I was in an outpatient uh medical facility at that time, where I at least wasn't locked in the building. I got to go home at the end of the day, but still pretty terrifying. And once there was a gym that was still open back when everything was locked down, and I was like, can I go train here? And they were like, yes, just no videos, do not show anyone, don't tell anyone. And I started training there again. And pretty much with that, all of my mental health and all of my stress kind of like mellowed out, and I was able to kind of recover from that. But the past couple years, it's been really stressful because the job that I got after college, I just recently separated from that job. I asked for a raise, and they told me to look into food stamps. I was like, what? I asked for
Wow.
a raise again. They were like, just live in your car, it's cheaper. And I was like, what? And then my last day, I was like, I'm either leaving here with a raise or without a job. And they're like, okay, bye.
Mhm.
I was like, whatever. I've been doing the work of someone 2 stages above me, and I'm not getting paid for it. And they just
Yeah.
started having me train people. And they still text me. They're like, how do I do this? And I'm like, I don't work there. I read smut
Yeah.
for a living. But
Yeah. It's and that you have to do that. You have to
yeah,
make the uncomfortable decision, because if you don't advocate for yourself, nothing will change. And
yeah,
10 years from now, you're in an uncomfortable spot. Maybe after that, you're regrouping right now, but you would just be stuck in this like place with no trajectory, right?
yeah,
Where you're not being appreciated for your capabilities and what you're contributing. And
yeah,
so it's the hard thing to do. It's the brave thing to do. It's the right thing to do.
yeah.